Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and each week I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I am so excited about this week's guest who has been a friend of mine since, oh my goodness, like second, third, fourth grade when we were kids. And so, Vanessa, thank you so much for being here. Kind of tell everybody who you are.
Thank you so much. Yes, Todd is completely right. We've been childhood friends forever. We were back in like the little grade schools and all. It was amazing, but we've grown since then. So since then, a lot has happened from second grade, obviously. I've gone on. I've kind of pursued my career in different realms. I've actually thought I wanted to do physical therapy. Then it turns out that that wasn't for me. So I got into education. And you know what? Ever since then, I'm crazy. I love it. I love the kids. I love the relationships I get to build with them. So I kind of knew for a while education was my field. I guess I just needed a little push and shove. And Here I am today. I'm actually an educator. I do education consulting, actual physical education coach as well. Currently, I'm actually in my administration degree too. So I just keep getting crazier and crazier as it goes. So I think
I can totally relate. That's how we all are. We're always wanting to see what else we're good at. And so, but you kind of mentioned thinking that physical therapy might be in your realm. And so, when I have these conversations, the first question I always ask is, as a kid, we dream of what we're going to be. So when you were a kid dreaming of what you were going to be, does it align at all with what you're doing now?
When I go back and I think on it, I was like, I don't know if you guys remember Sesame Street with Elmo and this one episode where he's like, Elmo wants to be an astronaut. Elmo wants to be a firefighter. I was Elmo. I still probably to this day am Elmo. I'm still learning and growing and figuring out so much about myself. And I think I've kind of just learned that I'm not inside the box, So sometimes you have to create positions that weren't ever there to begin with. So in some degree, yes, I guess it's aligned in the sense of I wanted to do it all. I wanted to do everything. I think going through it and actually experiencing it, but also failing at it too, has really helped mold me into who I am today. So definitely, I would say I wasn't that kid that could tell you exactly what I wanted to be. I just knew I wanted to make a difference. And you know what? To this day, that's what I'm doing. And whatever the title or whatever field I guess it may be in, who knows, it's always a learning, growing experience, but definitely that's where I'm at today with all of it.
Well, one thing that I've learned being a teacher and then an administrator and now with my job at TEPSA is that there are a lot of roles at the school that are very, people do not have the correct they're very misconception about what they actually do. And the physical education teacher is one of those positions that a lot of other educators will look at and go, well, you've got it easy. You just play all day. Like that's all it is. And I know from talking with my PE teacher, it is way more than that. And so, what do you for the people listening today, what do you love most about being a physical education teacher? And what do you feel like is one of the biggest misconceptions?
What I truly, truly love about being a physical educator, it's very different. I think we think of our old school back in the day. Oh, the coach rolled the balls out and you play dodgeball and all that. We do not do that. I really am big on social emotional learning and getting to push that aspect. I do laugh because you're right. There are several teachers that are like, you have the easy job or you get to play all day. And it's one of those things where, well, technically, yes, I play all day, but everybody in every, position that they're in should learn the power of play. Yeah. So it's very different. I get to wear many hats like a lot of educators too, but I really get to do that interaction. I mean, we're in a COVID time right now, so it's a little bit more difficult for sure, but really pushing hard on really understanding the social and emotional learning. And I don't do just physical, wellness. I'm all about mental wellness and emotional wellness. So I love my title because I feel like it's just the umbrella to it all. There's so many things that lie underneath it. So whenever people tell me things like that, I just kind of laugh, I just, I'm like, clearly you're not an educator or you don't really understand what they do. But yeah, to this day, I battle with that. And My own family doesn't even
Yeah.
understand my own career. They never will, probably, but that's okay. But I love, honestly, when people challenge that and they're like, well, what do you do then? That's perfect. That's what I want them to ask me, because my kids could tell you, my colleagues can tell you it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So I love it, and I love doing what I do. And of course, I want to continue it, but I want to kind of build myself on up into that administrator role who truly values and appreciates that discovery team, those specials teachers, what that whole, group and team does for the school in general. It's my goal to advocate and to help people understand that and learn how important that is, especially during this COVID time
Yeah.
of the arts and stuff. So that's that.
I'm so thankful that there are people like you in those positions who can advocate for the hard and needed work that goes with that position and how important it is. And I think sometimes as educators we get so caught up in our role and what we do, and we see our role as the most valuable. When we go and look, it's like, no, every role has to play a piece. It's just like every part of the body plays a piece in making that body work, and so we all play a role. But at some point you have this inkling, this urge to consider administration. So where did that come from?
I think it's just that the representation for, especially like a discovery team, being on a discovery team, with your art teacher and your music teacher, and hearing the frustrations, especially, how their content areas are not taken serious enough. And especially here in Texas, we're so, testing based and pushing academics. While I do value academics, and I'm not saying they're not important, there's so much overall for the whole well-being of the child, and not just the child, the staff and faculty involved, in this process and getting that going. So I think for me, it's one of those, naturally, when you want to make a difference too, it's getting higher and higher with leadership too, and really being able to trickle down your effects. So I enrolled with UTSA. And what I love about UTSA, and what I've heard, and my wife is in this program as well, I love the whole social justice behind it. That's the truth of it. Some people are like, there's a lot of controversy in this, and it's like, it's really not controversial. It's real. It's just real. It's raw. It's problems that we've had that we just choose not to address. So I think it was one of those things. I think it's the times too, and the pandemic, having more time to slow down and reflect and see what it is you want to do. So I think that kind of just played a whole role into, what, I want to do this whole administration and really go in there and impact the kids the way that they should be. And the truth of the matter is, that you are a very influential person, and I see what you do, and I love that you use your platform. So that's been a push, and that's been very encouraging for me to see that, the small town little kids that we used to be growing up and getting out of our little small town ways.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I've got to appreciate and love the small hometown I came from. It is a part of who I am today, but it also helped me to grow and see, there's more to there than our nice country land that we got out there. So,
and it definitely was a country small town. So that's for sure. Well, Vanessa, one thing that I've noticed about you through following you through social media is that I feel like you're one of those people who has really grown into who they are and their voice, and really found out, this is what I stand for, this is who I am, this is, and you've gotten braver in using that voice. But what I've found as well, though, also though, is no matter how successful you are, no matter how comfortable you are with things, there still is always that doubt that can begin to creep in, or that comparison of, well, I'm not as good as so-and-so, or things like that. How do you keep doubt and comparison from taking root in your own life?
Oh man, that's a tough one, honestly. I mean, naturally, I feel like I'm my biggest competitor. That's the thing. You always want to be better. And you're right. I've completely grown. I went from what I felt was like just the PE coach and kind of going with the standard and getting by to, no, I want to change the game. I want to be more innovative. I want to figure out ways to add technology into this. And at the time, people looked at me like I'm crazy. And, 3 years ago, like, technology, you don't need that in PE and on. It's like, ta-da, here we are today. So it just pushed me to grow and to kind of get out of those standards and barriers that we put on ourselves. Like, this is, I call it that whole Clydesdale method, where we put our blinders on and we may look pretty and regal and great, but we just see straight forward. And I took those blinders off, and I feel like I credit that a lot to my support system around me and the people I finally started putting myself around.
Right.
And definitely they've shown me that I can grow and I don't have to be the standard and the typical stereotypical things of the matter. So I think that has just helped me grow. And while I do get my doubts, like, oh, I saw this on like a social media, it has its pros, but it has its cons for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Because you're always seeing, the other people. Sometimes you're like, geez, that's amazing, but sometimes you don't know everybody's life and you don't know what they're going through. And maybe they have a million extra free hours, lucky them, but or they just have that passion. So honestly, what helps me kind of stay grounded and kind of, stay where I'm at this point where I don't feel like the need to compete or get that doubt. No, I just stay with the support system that I have. I remind myself that I'm more than enough, and the outcomes that I see with my students too. Like I could plan, and I know a lot of educators understand this. You can plan the most amazing, lesson plan and all these extras, bells and whistles and stuff. And then sometimes the kids are like, all right, is this it? And then it could be the littlest things like they came up with where you really didn't feel like you put your everything and your heart and soul into it, but they're like, oh my God, best day ever. And you're kind of like, I made this harder than it needed to be. I truly did. So my kids help me gauge that, building those relationships and seeing that they understand that Coach Trevino cares about them. They feel comfortable and confident to always come to Coach Trevino for everything, not just school related. I think that helps remind me that, you know what, Vanessa, you're doing way more than enough, and you gotta just keep it going this way. So
I
that's
love that. I love that answer. But my favorite part of your answer was when, like, we pour so much energy in this amazing lesson and the kids are like, and then it's like you just throw something together like, this is the best day, and you're like, that was not even my best. And that's what
yes.
you love. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
But Vanessa, this pandemic year has been insane. I mean, we've all had to learn new walks of life, but you added to the insanity by getting married during a pandemic and everything like that. So congratulations on married life. But what was that like trying to piece that together and make it happen during a pandemic?
It's one of those things. I think, like, if you follow me on social media too, you always see that I put like a hashtag my kids came up with was hashtag not basic. And it's usually not PE. Well, I'm living out that hashtag still to this day. It's hashtag not basic with anything. The date was already set before the pandemic, and it was a bit stressful because you don't know in these times what was going to happen. You'd seen so many other people and brides have to cancel and push it back even 2 years, and that October 29th date was always set. So it was like, is this going to happen? What are our rules going to be in our county? Are we only going to have like 10 people? What are we going to do? But I have an amazing, amazing partner. I have an amazing wife that truly helps keep me grounded and makes me, feel reassured that even my craziest of crazies, it's going to be okay. Yeah. So it was a team of that. And it goes back to that support system, even the friends that were like, you know what, this is going to happen. So we did make arrangements we had to downscale it completely. We had to choose 50 of our closest, friends and family. And even at 50, we were kind of like, but it was outdoors. We were trying to figure out whose family, putting them into pods, keeping them together. So there was a little bit of planning that went into it, but it was the team of people that we had working, friends, close family, the vendors themselves, reassuring that it's going to be great and okay. So honestly, I wanted to always be to that point where it's like, can I just like walk into the wedding and everything just happened from there? And yeah. I was just like kind of, kidding about that. But literally that's what happened. And it was amazing. So it was like, I just showed up and everybody else around me just kind of like put in their teamwork and made it happen. And I'm like, hey, why can't like our professional lives always work like this too, So planning a wedding in a pandemic, definitely, it could be a little stressful, but with the right people, the right support and love around you, it's doable. And I'm glad that we got to follow through and make that happen.
Well, I love the photos, but all I kept thinking in my head was, It was a nightmare planning a normal wedding. I can't even imagine trying to plan one with trying to adhere to all the pandemic specifications and making sure people are safe and the vendors are happy and changing this and that. So, bravo
You
for
know what?
making
That
it
just goes
happen.
to show what amazing educators we are.
That's right.
He's an educator too, so it happens. So anyone else, I can't promise you it'll go that smoothly. But if you're both educators, you have a shot.
I love it. Well, Vanessa, the way I always love to end these conversations is I believe as people, there are so many things we hold close to our hearts and are true to who we are. And so if you were to leave the people listening or watching with one thing, what would your one thing be for them?
You know, my one thing I've had a lot of time to reflect on it is don't be scared to be who you truly are. You know, I think that we are brought up and we live in this world and society where, like I said, there's this box put around everybody. It's okay to go outside of the box. It's okay to not even be in the box. Like, I feel that I just want everybody to be true to who they are, even if it's scary, even if you're like, this might be a scary thing, or I don't know about that. Like, just allow yourself to truly grow and be who you really are. And once you do, I'm telling you, life just comes and it's so much easier in that sense. And you grow from it and you continue to love through it. And it's an amazing feeling. So my advice to everybody is don't be so scared. Don't be so timid to just be you. And then you may find that you're so impactful to somebody else's life. So that's the great thing about this.
I love that so much. Well, Vanessa, I've been looking forward to this conversation. So thank you so much for coming and being a guest on Tell Your Story today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Vanessa has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story because every story